Morning. How was the night last night? I hope you had a good night. And you enjoyed the buffet and the dinner and you had time to talk. It's always very difficult to come on the second day because there's a lot of expectation that you need to build on the first day. I first want to thank the organizers for having invited me here. It's a big pleasure to be here, back in China. I've been several times in China, so it's great to come from time to time. And if you come 1 month after another, there's a lot of changes. And the dynamic environment that we are in is very stimulating. And I will try over the next 40 minutes to try to introduce this concept of what are the key things that you need to do if you want to stay ahead of the game. And I think it's written there, to lead the trend. I think what you need to do to be ahead of the game. And I'll give you a perspective, keeping in mind that what I'm talking about is something that we are obviously doing day in, day out inside our company, but it's a more generic presentation. So a lot of these things could be really used and applied to your day-to-day job. So we're trying to be very practical and not talk about us too much. I have 3 slides which will talk about Nestlé, and then we'll deep dive into what I believe is strong, that every company, every organization, no matter if you're a university, no matter if you are a startup, no matter if you're a big company, need to embrace day in, day out. And clearly, the details are what matters, and the people is what matters. So all could be very theoretical if we don't have the right people to make these things happen. So I'll just go ahead with my presentation. So I'll stand, can you hear me? Yeah. So this should be, let's see if we get it right. Okay. Small introduction about Nestlé. Who are we and what are we doing? I think you know Nestlé. We've been in this country since quite some time. We are obviously in many, many countries. You can see that. We have 150 countries present. In some places we do not believe, even in Afghanistan we have presence. We have presence in a lot of big and small countries. We have more than 2,000 brands, so some of the brand discussions we heard yesterday about how you lead and how you build personality. So we have 2,000 different personalities if you want to think about it. The brands are people in one way or another. We sell 1 billion Nestle products sold every day. It means every day in the world we sell 1 billion products. So it's a lot of responsibility through that type of incredible reach you have on paving the way and making things happen day in, day out. You can clearly see there, I'm not going through the pie chart, but what the different products we cover. We cover basically from prenatal all the way to whenever you want to go ahead in your life, right? In one way or another. In that journey, we also have pets, which are part of the life in one way or another. So we have different products, different solutions to different needs. In terms of sales, we are the largest food and beverage company, or how we like to call it, the nutrition, health and wellness company. We have 91.6 billion sales in 2014 and 4.5% organic growth. You can very interestingly see how different is our growth if you're talking about the developed country or you're talking about developing countries. And I don't know how to classify China at this moment of time because it has both connotations. And we saw how different it is yesterday morning, the first speaker. He said if you're tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, how the things are changing. And effectively for us, is the same issue like for anybody else here in China, that we have different levels of growth depending where you are. So a lot of challenges that we have in front of us, but a lot of opportunities. Now, innovation, and here I'm here to talk about innovation, has always been part of our DNA. We started trying to address the need of malnutrition for infants in Switzerland. Henry Nestlé was the guy who founded the company and started this whole journey 150 years ago. And on and on and on. And we have been able to succeed because we always put a lot of emphasis in research, in looking to new things, and into what we call innovation at large. And innovation is not purely around products, but around different aspects. And you know very well, one of the most copied innovations of Nestlé is Nespresso, because it opened up a new door to look at coffee consumption in a capsule and delivering a constant quality on and off all the time. But there's many more Nespressos in our chart. Now, let me see. No, it's the wrong one. Sorry. When you look at food and beverages, or when you look into a more large discussion, you look around nutrition, this chart explains you how the whole journey have started. At the beginning, we had an issue in the world of food supply. It's about survival, it was about hunger, about having the energy to be able to make it happen, to have the right metabolic level where we could make it happen. And a lot of work has been done in agriculture, and the chairman mentioned this before. He explained extremely well how important is the agricultural piece in the overall supply of food, and how important is research in that area. Then I think we went into the biotechnology when we started looking into food security elements, and that's where you enter the food and nutrition supply element. And you have different technologies that come into play in the lower level of the chart. And there's where you start working on preservation technology. So you have a lot of food, the food doesn't have a long life, can you transform it and make it more stable? And I think we heard about it, you cannot transfer fresh milk, you need to dry it and create it into a milk powder in order you can move it around the world in order to supply the elements. But then when we became more sophisticated as a world, as a group of people, we started looking into food pleasure. And food pleasure, that's where you start having elements of taste, aroma, variety. And if I walked into one of your retail outlets, or traditional, modern, or whatever it is, wow, you have a lot of taste and aroma here in this country. And a lot of mix and match of different things, exactly to satisfy certain type of needs. And that's where, when you start working in that area, you need to start talking about food science and technology, because there's a lot of different components, and food is a very complex matrix. And you know very well, if you've been cooking or if you've been observing cooking, how complex, how difficult it is to have an end product. Then I think you started moving into what we call the health, disease, and prevention area. And that's where I think the element of health and well-being needs to come in. I think you have it embedded in your culture. If I go around again, we see a lot of products which are claiming either to TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, or other elements, a lot of antioxidants, a lot of good things for your brain, a lot of good things for your digestive health, a lot of good things for your energy level, and depending where you are, you know this very, very well. And that's where I think the element of nutrition starts kicking in. And finally, you can go all the way to health management, which is the disease management. And we do a lot of work through our Nestlé Health Science products and Nestlé Institute of Health Science, where health science starts coming in. So food and beverages, to try to make it a very, very simple element, what my slide wants to say, is not what you should believe. It's a very complex matrix. It's made of a lot of different steps, and there's a lot of things that need to be done. And I think we have seen in China a big evolution after few of the food crises that have taken place, which are part of, in one way or another, of the growth of the country, really moving in this type of direction. So we have a lot to know, and we've learned a lot by working here in this country, how important is this element of well-being, how important is this element of health management, and that's why our overall vision has been constantly the one of to be the nutrition, health, and wellness company. And with that, there comes a lot of complexity and a lot of difficulties in making that vision available for every single person in the world. So that's the mission we're in. Now, I will briefly change into what I want to tell you today, which is, what is innovation? It's the most abused word in today's world. If you look into the dictionary, if you look to the board reports of many companies, innovation is probably repeated 50 times. 50 times, probably even more. Look to, if you have a chance, look to different board reports of different companies, and the word innovation is used everywhere. It's abused because it's many times misunderstood. It's used as something which is a good word to put in, right? Some time ago, we had other words like that. But now, and when we were talking about the trends, yesterday, the 2015 trends, innovation certainly is on the top of mind of everybody. My simple definition of innovation is where the world of business, which means making things happen, and creativity meet together to generate value. Innovation is action. Having an idea is not innovation. Making that idea in something concrete and make it happen, either for a company to have benefits from a monetary point of view, either for people who want to improve other conditions in the world, is really, really important. And if you look to Silicon Valley, which is very used as a startup and a very good place where a lot of creativity happens, it's made by two people. Think about it. It's made by the people who want to change the world, and those have a very clear mission. They want to improve it, they want to make it a better place, and the people want to make money. So the condition of these two elements together creates what is important, that spark that makes that place so important in making things happen. So innovation for me is where your ideas or your elements come together with a mean in order to create value for a certain purpose. Sorry, keep on going in the wrong direction. Okay, so today I will try to give you a definition of why innovation is important, what you need to do, and how you need to make it happen. And I think it's really, really important. It's red not because I'm in China, it's red because I want to get your attention, right? And you remember yesterday you had the green and the other dots, so why is it red? It's red for that purpose. And I think it's a really important thing, and innovation needs passion. That's why it's also red. Red is the color of passion. Red is the color of the heart. You heard yesterday about the heart story from one of the presenters. So why? Why is this? And I think not a better place than here can tell you why. We heard yesterday about how short the products stay on the shelf, how short things are happening. We heard about the different business models that are coming to play. We heard about e-commerce. We heard about other things. We're speeding time to market. There's more and more competition coming from not only big companies, but small companies, startups. Some of your big success, like Alibaba, was a startup a few years ago, and now it's huge. So things can change dramatically because of that. And if you ever try to go fast in a car, the lights around you will look like that. And that's the type of speed we're working. And you know, when you go fast, it's also dangerous. So there's a lot of elements related to that. And you have here sudden danger, hidden opportunity. I'm not able to pronounce it in Chinese, but you know, there's one sentence about that. And it's exactly that. So where's the hidden opportunity in this fast-pacing world? More and more, and this is a new terminology that is coming from US, it's called the VUCA world. It's used more and more in management schools and other things to define the environment we're in. We're in a very volatile environment. You know that. I don't need to explain this to you. It's very ambiguous, right? It's very uncertain. At the same time, it's very complicated. So to do innovation in an environment like this requires really a total different element. But I don't think you should be afraid, because what you need in this type of environment is what I call the VUCA answers. And when you're in a very, very disruptive and very uncertain environment, you need to have very clear vision. You need to have a very clear understanding how you're going to get there. And you need to be very clear, because if you have to explain this to your people, you need to be very clear how to do it. And agility is a very important connotation you need to have. Just to give you the example of Nestle, do we have a vision? Yes. Our vision is nutrition, health, and wellness. Do we understand how we want to go there? Yes. And that's why we're moving more and more out of what we will call the traditional products into more sophisticated products to really try to help the people live better. Do we have very clear how we want to make it happen? Yes. Everybody understands it. Are we agile? The answer is no. We're big. So how do you create agility in big organizations? And that I will try to explain you later, and you will see why we're doing things in a certain way. So the relation of being in a faster, more volatile environment is very normal. What is not normal for the Western world is not very normal. To be able to have a very unstable situation around you, to be able to move in a certain type of territory, this is very difficult for many, many organizations to understand. I think you are more equipped to work in this type of environment, which is extremely volatile. And that's why I believe China will have a big role to play in the future, because the day will embrace more innovation, the day will embrace more R&D, the day you have more setups here, which will allow you to do innovation and not purely do other things, and we see this with Alibaba, with other type of organizations, you will really make a big jump into the future. So we saw yesterday a bit on the trends, we saw a bit of the things, how are the 5 things you need to do better, and we also saw that what is important that you need to be ahead of the game, and how do you stay ahead of the game? And we saw talking about the leading supply to driving supply or being driven. There were very words in different places. And I think it's really important to understand that that was the past. What today is very clearly on the left was the past. If you still live in the past, you can still probably do a bit of innovation, but you're not equipped with the right tools, the right skills to move into that type of area. And I think it's great because we heard that many of these things we said about shaping consumer expectations. So how do you predict? How do you stay ahead? How you have foresight to understand where the people are going? And we heard yesterday also about how you read information from the internet, how you can work on it. We heard people trying to read your brain and see your emotions, right? How do you go ahead of this whole thing? How are you driving the market? We heard about driving the market yesterday in this room again. Brand experiences, loving, what's the relation, what the meaning, what the feeling, how do you engage with it? Holistic innovation, we also heard about that. It's not only about product and technology, but it's also very much about how you innovate inside the company with new marketing tools, with new sales structure, with new route to markets. And also we heard about business models breakthrough a bit in the Carlsberg presentation. This morning we heard also again about the end-to-end. Supply chain, value chain is an end-to-end game that starts with, and we always use this terminology from farm to fork. So it covers everything. And everybody needs to play its own role. So it's not only one company that can make a difference, it's how you go with a reciprocative collaboration. And big gaps. Today you need to make big jumps. You cannot do incremental. We heard yesterday about incremental innovation. Yes, you need to keep that, but what is going to be the next big thing that a company is going to do? And our company is equipped with that way. This is important because, look, what you have here, and you might not see Nestle there, and it's a different models, different things. I just put it that way, is companies will be evaluated in their capability to innovate. Like it happens in Moody's rating, the country rating, that you get AAA, AAA++, B, D, C, and money comes in and out. Companies are going to be rated. This is the first time in 2012, this is a 2012 story, and this is already a 2014 story, it's the first time that companies don't self-rate themselves, because normally all these statistics, how innovative you are, is from the internal club of 4,000 CEOs, CTOs, CIOs that sit together, do a questionnaire, send it over, and there are different forms of reports. There's a BCG report, there's a Business Week report, but these are all done internally. This is the first time companies are rated based on external feedback. And this is a Credit Suisse and INSEAD type of model. And more, when you will go to talk to your shareholders, you will need to tell what you're going to do. So innovation is not only purely here as a nice word, will become a very, very business imperative. And if you don't have that type of capability, you will be left behind. So what? What do you need to do? What you need to do, you need to do 3 things. They seem very simple. I'll try over the next few slides to give you an idea what these 3 things are. So we know the context is very risky. We know the context is very uncertain. We know we will do a lot of mistakes, but how do we do this in a smarter way? Well, first of all, I think the first part is strengthen the foundations to accelerate. So certainly in your organization, certainly somewhere, you would have certain methodologies, certain tools that make things happen. You might have consultants flooding you with a lot of ideas, but at the end, whatever consulting groups or whatever people will tell you, you need to make it yours and make it happen. The second part, we will talk about how you build innovation capability and how you become an entrepreneur, even if you're a big company like us, or even if you're a small company, because not necessarily a small company could be agile sometimes. And how do you create new business opportunities? More and more people are trying to aggregate things, and they talk about an innovation framework. So the innovation framework normally starts with what we call why. Why I'm here as a company. What is my business strategy? The second part starts with a what. What is my growth agenda? How I'm going to make it happen? What's my innovation mix? Is it product? Is it business models? Is it other things? And then the how, and that starts with management and the government of how you make it happen, what tools you use, how you make it happen, how you cross-collaborate. And finally, you go with the innovation enablers, which is the culture you need to have, and then the rewards you give to the people, and how you make it happen, okay? Just to give you an example, the best in class in defining, and these are all Western models, and I'm sure here in China you can make the same thing. On the why is Amazon. Amazon is extremely crispy on how they want to make their vision happening and what is their basically strategic thing. Another company on the growth agenda, which has different innovation mix, is Lego. You all know Lego, which is the little brick company. They were almost bankrupt, and they turned around, and now it's a very, very successful company. And on the management framework and analysis in the governance, Microsoft, and you saw a presentation from Microsoft, they're thinking about holograms and all type of thing. This all comes thanks to the tools and the elements you do. And of course, I think here there's a very Western thing. Google is one of the best places to work and one of the best places where people can really make innovation happen. So you need to think about that whole element together. But what you need to do if you really want to make it happen, we heard about the front end. We heard about this fuzzy front end. The front end is when you try to solve a problem, you try to find the idea to solve the problem, you do prototypes, you do concepts, you do testing, and then if it's a big idea, you go for it and make it happen, right? And that's why many companies need to move from a tactical way of doing this, and we talk about discover, develop, and deploy. So the front end is the discover part that we're talking about. The develop is when you make the things happen through your R&D community or through the other things. The deploy is when you bring it to the market. So you need to move, again, on the right-hand side of the chart, you need to think strategic. You should not be reactive because suddenly a competitor came with a new lemon flavor and with a vitamin C, and you say, oh my God, we missed this, right? So you have to really be doing it. You need to take leadership. Instead of a tunnel, you need to think of a funnel. You need to think instead of incremental, high impact. And you need to think about a more integrated way how you're going to make it happen. So how you make it happen. And we saw colors yesterday. There were 5 colors in again, the trend thing. This is not new. This is not mine. This is basically the approach of design thinking. Design thinking was born in the States, specifically in Chicago Design University, Design Institute, where this technique came out. And the belief is design is not only the way you design things, but also the way you design process, you design frameworks and other things. And this is extremely simple, but if you apply it and you put tools below there, you can really make it happen. The first thing you need to do when you are going into ideation on the front end, you need to define what's the problem you're trying to resolve. What is the job that this invention should deliver to the end user, right? So if you're making something with vitamin C, what is the purpose? It's just putting vitamin C because people think they're not going to be sick? Or what is the full purpose? How much is the quantity you want to put? Can you claim it? Can you make it happen or not? Yes, or whatever it is. So it starts with what is the problem? The second part is know. How do we know more about this problem? And that's where research comes to play. We heard the Nielsen people were talking about another process. This, you can read it, you can Google it, you can, well, you don't Google it here, but you can Wikipedia, you can look into the web, what's the definition of design thinking? And we'll follow this whole process. And we're using this in Nestle to really look into that thing. The second time, what does it mean? Can I play in this game? What's the opportunity area? Is it a big business? Can I go there or not? Is it a small business? Does it make sense? And that's where you prioritize. And maybe you go back and your idea is not probably a good idea. By the way, startups in Silicon Valley, Israel, and probably even here, work in this way. They normally do this in 8 weeks because on week 12 they need to meet the investor or the VC, which will give them the money if their idea is great or bad. So they do a lot of pivoting in this whole thing. Create means making prototypes, making things that you can show to the people, that you can test. And finally, validating is when you have many prototypes and you choose one of them to be your idea, you need to validate it. And you need to validate it in 3 levels. Is it desirable? Does the people love it? We heard about loving. Do the people love what you've done? And the answer is yes. Okay, one strike. Two, can you make money out of it? Can you put behind it a good budget of marketing? And the answer is no. I think you need to go back because your idea is not enough big to command a certain price point. And third, you can have the two strikes. If you don't have the third one, how you make it happen? Now, if this lasts 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, if to make it happen you need 3 years of investment for a factory, I think it's not a good idea, right? Because all the research you have done with a fast-moving cycle or a fast life pace, by the time you put the product on the market, the consumers that told you, I want this product, have already moved, or they are older. They're not anymore teenagers. They're not anymore toddlers. They've moved. And this is the issue we have with the Go organization. We go through a rigorous process of validation. We take so much time, and then by the time we launch it, we're in trouble. So how do you go out and also look for ideas is a very important thing to build innovation capability and entrepreneurship thinking. Thinking that you do everything inside is lost. Well, first of all, you need to search your own company because probably you already invented that same thing 3 years ago and you didn't make it happen because somebody obstructed it. Maybe it's time to go and look. We talk about internally in Nestlé, sleeping beauties. What are the sleeping beauties you have in your company that you could easily make happen? Second one, you need to work with others. And that's what we talk about strategic alliances. We talk about partnerships. Are you connected with the right university if you're working in specific high scientific and technological areas? Are you connected with the best of the best around the world or around your country, whoever? And that was a good example, the one we had before. How important is that famous golden triangle? So what is your golden triangle? But don't ignore the startups. The startups are the people which are more agile, which have a lot of ideas. And I don't know where your startup environment is here. I heard obviously here in Shanghai there's a good startup environment, particularly in tech, but also in Beijing. These are starting emerging also here. And that's why, and there's plenty of money. You heard about Kickstarter. You, with 10,000 US dollars, you can start a company in the US and give trouble to a company like us. So today the world is very democratic. It's very even. There's no big companies, small companies. A guy who has a good idea can do it. So you need to be connected to those type of things. So I don't know how many of you have heard about hackathons. Hackathon is a way where startups get together and share and team up and make things happen for 2 days, 48 hours. And they need to have a pitch for an idea. And the winning idea normally gets money. It's all driven by money. So really important, your idea hunting. But once you've done your idea hunting, I think it's important that you also start thinking, how are you going to make it happen? We heard about disruption yesterday from the gentleman from Heineken. I tend to disagree with a bit his terminology of disruption. I think disruption is something which is totally new to the world. Disruption is something totally new to the world. From a science technology point of view, we don't know how to make it happen. And from a consumer, they don't ask for it. Okay? If I use the example of Nespresso, it's an old example for us, but it's still used in many business schools. People were not asking for coffee in a capsule. And we didn't know how to make it happen through a machine and a capsule. But the work that we did was really breakthrough. It took us a long time to break through it, of course, but it happened, and today is a big success in that way. And to do it, you need to work like a startup. That's why startups are very important for you to observe. So if one advice I would give to you here, go and understand startups. If one advice I would give to this forum, get some startups to talk to you. Because they will talk to you with a total different language than the ones that we have heard on the stage till now. And you need to go through those 4 steps, and that can be done in different ways. And if you want more details, we can talk out after the break or other things that we can go into it much more faster. But that's not enough, because we have been talking about a lot of systems, tools, do this, do that. It's really important that you really need to think about the insight, so understanding, be ahead of the game, being connected to the world, and you decide you want to be it through the internet, be it through reading, being through talking to friends, going to a meeting, go to a conference like this. It's all about insight. The processes are needed, but without insight, and particularly without the passion, it would not work. And maybe what I'm going to put you here as the next slide might be shocking you a bit.
innovation is not only one matrix, but you need to work on two matrices. And you need to work on the entrepreneurship matrix. The innovation matrix is what we've been talking. So there, what you should do is embrace design thinking. Really, really important. Think about the early stage of innovation. Fail a lot there. Take your time. Make things happen. Define really what is the problem you want to solve and get there. It's about culture. Are you promoting culture? Are you promoting your people to go out and listen and look at new things? Are you asking them to connect? But that's not good enough, because you can do a lot of that type of access and nothing happens, because you need to understand how entrepreneurs think, how business models work. So you need to have an understanding about this environment, and again, design thinking. For example, countries. I can give you an example of countries. I think you are extremely strong in entrepreneurship here. Really good. Any Chinese person I know is a very good business person that's able to make money out of an idea. I think where you need to do a bit more is in the innovation axis, because that's where I think certain tools, certain techniques, understanding certain ways, adapting to your culture. But even that one, in some cases, you see some of your IT companies and web companies are very, very entrepreneurial on that side. So it's thing, but I'm talking more for the food and beverage environment. And that's really important. For example, up in the Northeast, who's high in entrepreneurship, high in innovation? Any idea? Tell me a country which is up there in the Northeast. Up there. High in entrepreneurship, high in innovation. Any idea? Well, Silicon Valley certainly is there. For the reason I told you. They're very strong in entrepreneurship, strong in innovation. Israel is up there. You don't think about Israel, but Israel, normally these are all countries with a certain type of constraint around them. Either money or geopolitical or other type of things are there. European countries will be more in the innovation side, up there in the northwest. So there you would have Japan also, Korea would be there. Singapore would be somewhere in the middle. Singapore, you know, putting a lot of money in R&D and other type of things there. I think you will be probably also a bit in the middle in one way or another. So a lot of work to be done in that area. The point is, the world is also shifting in elements, and I think in the other room they're talking about natives, digital natives. These are the guys which are 18 years below. These will change entirely the way things are done. We heard yesterday afternoon in the other room about the fact that machines will govern a lot of our world. You have driverless cars, you have a lot of things going to happen, right? So elements like obedience, diligence, and expertise are becoming less and less relevant. You can buy it, you can get it very quickly, you can headhunt people if you want to buy it. It doesn't mean. The difficult part is to have people that have initiative, who have creativity, and have what I call passion. And those are things that you really tend to develop with the right brain. So universities, institutions, companies need to really work on that area, because those will be the more scarce resources, which are what it will be needed for the new world, for this new area that we are going to be in. So think about it. Are you really promoting passion, creativity, initiative, or are you just promoting the people which are saying yes, sir, every day and not debating things? Because I will not keep you up to speed in the future. You also need to embrace new techniques. This is a model called Business Model Canvas, invented by two gentlemen through 5,000 inputs from the internet. They wrote a book. They made millions. So they asked the people, what would you do if you have to think about the business model? And the internet gave them all the material to make this book. And this is a very good example how things can be done in a different way. So the world is changing rapidly, and you need to be ahead of the game. And you need to be connected. That's why when you are in innovation, innovation is a very difficult thing to do. It's very, very difficult and very complicated. You also need to do two things. You need to be the big truck, which needs to deliver all those things, but at the same time, you need to be the entrepreneur. If you're a big company like us, you need to have these type of two environments. The big truck can go slow and steady, can deliver the goods, but, you know, you need to be more agile. Agility I was talking to you about. So how do you look at that agility and how you make it happen? More and more companies, and a few companies which are going to speak here afterwards, either here in the other room, Pepsi, Coke, are there. We're all thinking, how do we get to the next big thing? So we still have to deliver every day by selling Kit Kat, by selling milk powder, by selling it, our peanut milk here. We have to deliver what the shareholders and what the people want. But at the same time, we need to build a new future. And you can clearly see the consumer goods are predominantly working on sustainability, media, and publishing. That's why you have a lot of media going into what we call the area. We heard about e-commerce, so everybody's there. But look, telecommunications, automobile are working in different things. So how do you find the next big thing? I think you need to start thinking about a dual structure. And we hear about incubators, accelerators, and other things like that, which are going to require new setups and working with a lot of these type of new environments. And the incubator venturing unit you need to have has to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. And that you will not spend a lot of money, but you need to be able to do that. User and commercial prototyping and market testing, startups. And the broader organization, once you've proven that that can work, you need to move it into execution, integrating it, and focus on business plans. If you try to have a business plan that will make money in the unit there, it will not work. It will be killed right away in the big organization. So think about that as a new way of looking to the world and how you want to structure yourself. Maybe it's a small unit of 3, 4 people with a bit of money that they can fill around. I know they will be highly criticized. You need to keep them outside, off the radar screen. If you put them inside, they will die because all the antibodies of the company will kill them. And by the way, this happens also to the innovation people. They normally get killed by all the CMOs, CFOs. There's no reason why you're doing this. You're wasting all the money, particularly when sudden danger happens. Shut down the budget, get rid of you, right? That's always happens. So how you make it happen, finally? So I told you the why, the what, the how. Well, it will be looking very simplistic because it's just 3 charts, but it's for you to take these ideas and what does it mean to me and how to make it happen. Innovation doesn't happen by only one person. It happens by a team. You need to have a group of people, and not only a group of people, R&D, marketing, finance, and things. No, but people with different mindset. Either the left or the right or whatever. This is a whole brain thinking one way or another. You need to have people which are thinking about new things. We call them the trend spotters, expansion. I can give you an example. I don't have Chinese examples, but Richard Branson, which all of you know, he's that type of guy. So he's that type of guy. If you only have those people in the room, they will talk about so many ideas and nothing happens, I promise you. You need to have another person in the room, which is the inventor or the creator. People which are able to translate that thought in something tangible, and something visible, something you can touch, you can feel, you can smell, you can taste. Again, those 2 people, one will still bring inside, the other will do prototype, the other will go out, say, no, but this is more cooler, this will be better, no, yes, oh, no, and nothing happens. You need people who think through how I can make money out of it, or how I can make an outcome, and not necessarily money, but how can I make it happen, right? And that's more the strategy guy, the Bill Gates of this world, or wherever you have here. And again, you only have these 3 guys, nothing happens. The guy will strategize it, will make P&Ls, will make business models, and nothing will ever happen. You have to say, okay, enough and enough. Let's make something happen, which is what we call the executive. The Warren Buffett, if you want, in this world. Of course, the inventor, you can imagine, Steve Jobs could be a perfect person fitting there. You need to have these teams. By chance, this is also the flow I spoke to you about. It's about expansion, creation, which you remember I talked about prototype, I talk about developed, and then I talked about the execution part that you need to have. So really think about the people that need to be around the table if you want to make innovation happen. For the financial people which are in the room, I don't think that R&D people need a lot more money. I mean, throwing money to things doesn't mean anything. It's a lot of waste that gets created. It's really important that perfect strategic alignment, the language is understood, everything is there, and there's a culture that supports innovation. As I mentioned to you, if the bad times come and suddenly you pull the plug from the money you give to that unit, which is trying to do new things, well, that's not the culture that supports innovation. That's a culture that just wants to be looking nice at some conferences, and then when the bad time comes, you pull the rug under the feet of the people. And if you really want to move to drive innovation, you want to have the right culture, you can't do the same things. You need to change the way you do things. And maybe you cannot change the entire organization, but create a group which is a bit of, you know, the outliers, the guys which are out there. You need to have passion. You need to have the feeling that what you want to do, and people who want to really make a difference. I think that's really, really fundamental. If you don't have people that make a difference, you will be basically lost. So, changing the rules of the game defines 4 steps that you need to have, and this is not magic. You can read it in any textbook, but I just try to put it together. Very clearly know where you're going. It starts there. If you have a business strategy, if you want to go somewhere, be really clear where you want to go. Think that the world, you will never get it right. So you need to think at ways and where you will keep on improving this type of whatever you're doing. And things are not, you know, the world is changing so fast. So if you put yourself to go from here to Shanghai on one direction, if suddenly a roadblock happens, you need to change direction, but you still will go to Beijing from Shanghai. That's your final goal, right? So there will be a lot of obstacles in this road, but if you go thinking about continuous improvement, how can I make it better? How can I do it? It will work. You can't do this journey alone inside the company, but also you need collaboration. That's why the idea hunting is really important. Look at startups. If they're not good startups here that you can look into it because they already become big companies, the startups you are looking at, go outside and look. Go to Israel, go to Silicon Valley, go to London. Go to Singapore. These are the hot spots where you have good universities, you have entrepreneurial spirit, there is money, and the people who want to change the world or make money, right? And that will happen. And the last one, it's the learning journey. And it's a big change. You need to do it one after another, step by step, learn. Learning is an antidote of fear. So if you tell the people, look, if you go in a dark room, if you feel you bump on something when you enter the door, don't worry. It's not a person, it's just a rubber thing to change direction. So thank you. And if you have the chance that you think the impossible is not possible, Baidu is Baidu the replacement of Google, right? Baidu? Yeah. So Baidu, this guy, a guy who writes with the 2 hands and the 2 feet simultaneously 4 different things, and see what this guy does. He has the same brain, the same hands, the same legs as you. He writes 4 different things at the same time. So I think the brain power is bigger. So if you put your invention, your thoughts against it, you will make it happen. And I hope to see a lot of success out of this country, also not only in elements related to manufacturing, but also in invention and in R&D, because I think you have the power, you have the capability, and you can make it happen, and we need you to break new rules of the game. And thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. 谢谢. So thank you for your sharing of innovation and the thinking behind. So I'm very interested in terms of the innovation thinking, as you mentioned. On the one dimension is innovation, and on the other hand is entrepreneurship. So as you know, a lot of big companies for innovation, they have stage gate process, and it's kind of rigid. So on the other hand, we would like to further enhance the entrepreneurship during the innovation development. So from your experience or your thinking, what will be the recommendation in terms of to better embrace these 2 together?
I think big organization needs a governance system. I said the innovation management and governance is very important. So you will need system tools, you will need a framework, you will need a lot of things. However, you can be very agile and very inventive in the front end. The front end is normally never governed, at least as far as I know, in our organization, is not governed by a rigid system. The stage gate happens when you go into development. Development, you need to be very accurate because you have a launch date, you have people waiting for the product, and other type of things. In the front end, as I said, if you apply design thinking methodology, which is basically design thinking and lean startup, which are the 2 words that you need to have magic, you can do a lot of mistakes in that area. And that, I think, you need to leave space for the people to do it. I think it's always an ambiguous thing. As I said, when the time gets tougher, that's where all the creativity disappears, and the rigor and obedience and other things happen. So it's a balancing act, But if you have a leadership position in the organization where you can promote this element of front end and creativity, where it doesn't cost a lot of money to make mistakes, I think you're there. But I personally believe that you need to mimic with what is relative to you, the startups. The startups don't have time because I'm running out of money and I need to get a VC to give me money. We, in large companies, we have too much money sometimes and too much time. Because we're doing well anyhow. You saw Nestle doing very, very well. But in reality, you're not preparing yourself for the future if you still live in that type of world. So you need to break that thing. And unfortunately, innovation as a functional leadership normally doesn't have a place. It's either with a marketing guy, with a technical guy, or with an R&D guy. Instead, it's a broad cross-function responsibility that connects the business and the R&D world and R&D and technical world together. So it's a complex subject. It's a very modern profession, which is made of the, remember, 4, 5, 6. So if you are in innovation, you will have a future. If you're in obedience and diligence, I don't know. You will probably not have a future when the machine will take over from you. If you're a trader today, you can really work with high-speed trading. The algorithms and the machines are better than humans in making decisions. So scary stuff. So I'm all for innovation.
As I mentioned, maybe when we spend more in R&D, maybe we're not drive the results. So maybe more important for strategic alignment and to create this innovation culture. So I'm just wondering, so how do you look at R&D's role in the innovation roadmap building? And how do you understand marketing, how to working with R&D together? Because you also mentioned that in the idea submission, R&D should be deeply involved working with marketing. So kind of a little bit not detailed process or system, how to make sure the company can build a very good strategy in the innovation pipelines, the product strategy. So I want to understand that.
Well, for me, fundamentally, if there's no alignment, it's very difficult to make the two functions work. Well, I've been in the commercial world, I've been in the R&D world, and now I'm back in the R&D world. And connecting the two areas is very difficult because it's a translation issue. It's like if I would talk to you in Italian, which is my mother tongue, you will not understand. And maybe there's not even a translator there capable of translating because there's no Italian translator to Chinese. So I think you need to find the balance and where alignment is created. And then I think it's a question of portfolio management. You need to have the right balance of your portfolio. How much you want out of innovation of what we call the incremental innovation. We in Nestle call it renovation. How much you want from the real innovation or adjacent innovation, which is what's new either to the consumer, what's new to the science technology, and how much you want from breakthrough. Once you have a very clear alignment in that sense on the portfolio, the language is the same, right? And you are working well together in the front end because that's where different people of R&D needs to come into play. In the front end, maybe it's not the nutty scientists which come to play, but it's more the consumer insight people that need to work with the thing. So in different phases of what we call the funnel, you will have different type of stakeholders coming into the game. So it's a very complex subject and a very complex, I can stay here for 1 hour to talk about it. Maybe you can catch it up in the break or the lunch break to go more in detail, but I think every company has to find its own matrix and its own way of working it. But without collaboration, without that type of flow, it would not work. It would not work, absolutely. You need to combine the efforts. And it's a very complex, and it depends what you're trying to discover. It's a very deep science driven thing. The scientist needs to do an effort to talk to the business people more than what he would do or she would do.
So, Mr. Nannini, first of all, thanks a lot for your inspiration. And you said it's important for companies to look at startups. And how does Nestle observe startups? And does Nestle work together with startups or support them?
Well, in my function, I look after that part, so I can really talk to you about it. I think we are connected. We get people coming to us, but I think that's not enough. So you need to be connected to what we call the hotspots. For the hotspots for us are Singapore. I was market head there, so I know very well that environment. The money is not coming from the VCs. The money is coming mainly from the government, but you can do a lot of great work there. And Singapore can talk to India and can talk to China. So it's a fantastic place where a lot of things can happen in a certain area. There's a lot of people that go away, go and learn how to be a startup, come back, and they get funded and money. So that's one way. Another hotspot is in Europe. In Europe, there's a lot of startup environments. But I think the most hottest at the moment is London. Why? Well, you have three of the biggest institutions of the world university. Imperial College, at least I talk for us. Imperial College, Cambridge, and Oxford. The academic world creates startups. They give money. So the professors are not purely professors teaching, but they're also translating the academic research into real stuff. So there is another place where we are connected, and we talk about innovation hubs where we have sort of scouts and people looking into it. And the third one, of course, is US. There we have an outpost, Silicon Valley outpost, where we connect. That's mainly for digital. There's a lot of things happening there. On the health side, you need to be probably more connected to Boston, where there's much more in the health sector. You would understand, we are basically shopping in 4 areas. Nutrition, I think we know quite a bit of that, but still a lot to discover. We call the health science, because nutrition and health are getting connected. The life science, genomics, microbiome, et cetera, and the material science, because obviously that's part of our day-to-day job. So you need to be connected with those ecosystems. Now, where those ecosystems are, it's where you would put your people to discover. But I must admit, it's a very, very complex relationship, because particularly a company of our size, and we work every day, right? We don't think how big we are. And when the impact you have on small organization is huge. But I think it's a fascinating problem to have, put it that way. And I hope we'll have startups also here. And my colleagues here from Nestle are eager to discover where they are.
Thank you, Mr. Nannini. I think you can pay more attention on these 2 gentlemen, because they create a new beer, blue beer, and they have created a company, Baba Blue. Maybe you can know each other better.
Well, I think I'm going to listen to the presentation. We had wine upon a time in Nestle, in our portfolio, but we got rid of it. So I doubt we'll get into beer, but we're in fermentation, however, so pretty close. Maybe you can learn something from you guys on the technology side.
OK， 好，谢谢大家。我们那个会有。
So thank you very much. And so there's a little bit of delayed. So we have 10 minutes less spent on eating biscuits, but we can spend 10 minutes more on knowledge learning.
Hi, Mr. Nannini. I'm so sorry, and.
Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Nannini, for this presentation.
You can call me Valerio. This Mr.
Valerio, thanks.
Yeah,
it's very
easier.
inspiring.
But it's not good for you guys with the L and the R. I know that. So probably you prefer the surname.
The Nannini is easy for me. I'm French, so that's easy. Yeah. One question. This Nestle company is a huge company. I mean, you indicated the number of people in this company, which is very big. You have a talent of creativity and ideas in this company, which is amazing. You also presented a slide which shows the hierarchy of human capabilities at work, which shows very clearly that the first one is obedience and the last one being passion. I mean, when you try to do innovation in such a huge company like this and people have ideas, how do you manage this innovation and this nurturing of creativity and entrepreneurship in such a big company where obedience is probably definitely the #1 value, let's say?
Well, we are a very decentralized company. So the markets have a very big autonomy in how to make the thing happen. So the market head is a person which has a lot of autonomy. He has to deliver certain numbers. This is very clear. If the numbers don't come, then you start getting people visiting you. So rule #1, deliver the numbers. Because we're decentralized, there's some positive and some negative of this. So you have a framework, but this framework, everybody interprets the framework the way they want it. So you have some markets which might be doing the things in a certain way. On the other side, there's a positive, because you learn a lot. So what we do, we collect what we call a repository of what's happening, particularly on that front end, and we try to keep it alive with the newest thing. So let's say if I see a company here which is very good in trends, let's say she has left, the lady who presented the trends, and I think it's good for us to connect. They were already connected with us on the water, but if it's good to connect more, I will put it in a repository. And the marks will have free access to look into this. But I don't negate it's very complicated, okay? Particularly when you want to do it at a corporate level where you need to put the framework together to get what I would call the alignment of all the different functions to agree on something. It's really, really complex and difficult because everybody thinks they should do innovation. And innovation doesn't belong to anybody, doesn't even belong to me. We are a group of people, I have under me a group of people which are enabling innovation in a systematic way to happen. But it's very, very complex. But we have some teams. We have a team which is what we call our internal consultant called Innovation Acceleration Team. So we deploy those teams to teach some markets how to do things if they have a need. We have other type of teams, more in the science technology, that do exactly the same thing. So the different tools that you need to adapt to your environment. But certainly, you know, if you make innovation happen well in China, you score. If you make it in US, you score. You make it in your 10 big markets, you score. But we have only complexity because sometimes, you know, we don't do a great work in some areas. Sometimes the insights that come from the consumer research companies are so a thick document like this. Who has the time to go through it when you have to look to your performance? So I think there's a lot of behaviors that are not perfect. That's the end game solution, right? And we have a lot of work to do to improve ourselves. You know, you heard about rates of innovation yesterday, around 30%. But that's, again, renovation with the changing of the color of your label or other things. That's easy to do. But the difficult part is really the innovation one, which you need to do. And when you think about the complexity that we have of the many business we have, if you are only one mono company, mono product, it's much easier to focus on these things than being a separate level of kingdoms. So my short answer, decentralization is great, but it's not helping in alignment. But that's why you create frameworks, and then the people have freedom within that framework. And that's we hope to make the necessary progress to serve the people with what they need.
Thank you.
Okay. 谢谢 Mr. Nannini.
Thank you very much.